So I'm driving home from the dentist thinking, man, there are not going to be people waiting for this stream because I told them 5:30 and now it's already getting to be 6 o'clock. And then I get here and everyone's ready to go for the stream. I've got Sam queued up. I've got it ready to start streaming, and I realized I'd set it up on my phone so it didn't count and it wouldn't work for my PC. So that's why I had to relocate y'all to here. But I noticed that everybody figured it out, and we're ready to rock and roll. Thank you, first off, for being here. I'm excited. We got a big week ahead because it's the first game of Nebraska's season, and most important of all, it's really the first week of real college football. Last week we got a taste. It was fun. I enjoyed watching Navy. I enjoyed watching USC and some of the smaller teams, obviously Jacksonville State, where Logan Smothers plays, but this is the big one. This is when we really get into it. I get to make content all the time now going forward. I get to watch Josh Pate every week and all these other big YouTube streamers who I've gotten to, become a fan of, just like you guys have become fans of for the past couple of years here. So thank God football's back. That's what I'm here to tell you. First things first, I want to talk about the Eric Gilbert thing. It's going to be really quick because there's only so much to say, right? This guy came from Georgia. We were hoping he would have a chance to kind of rebuild his career as a football player. Unfortunately, he struggled to figure it out, and it didn't look like he was going to make a meaningful impact this year, even if he did get his waiver. He was buried behind Borkature and Thomas Fidone. But still, you'd want the best for the guy. You want him to get his life back on track, figure out his depression or whatever other personal issues he has going on, and you want to see him be able to get to the NFL and play there in some capacity, even if it's just, getting a chance to try out for a team, since we know he has a really high ceiling as a tight end or even a receiver. Then we saw that video. I'm sure most of you saw it, and if you didn't, I'm sure you can go and look it up on Twitter. It's him breaking into a vape shop at like 2 in the morning last night with a brick to steal $1,600 in vapes. And I mean, the guy doesn't need vapes that bad, right? There's something else going on. So whatever he's dealing with, I feel super bad for him because it's not obviously something he would do in his right mind, I don't think. So hopefully he gets the help he needs. My guess is he's not going to be on the team for much longer. Matt Rule's going to have to flush him out since there is a standard at this Matt Rule football program. And it's crazy. You saw this weird, I guess it was a 9-month spurt of Nebraska coaches and now players going through legal troubles. You had Mickey Joseph 9 months ago, then you had Bob Wager just a month ago, and now Eric. So hopefully things get straightened out. The positive train can keep rolling on. Obviously, I hope this doesn't derail the season. What's interesting is this could be a fantastic recruiting advertisement for USC and UCLA because in LA, 5 minutes from my house, I go to CVS once, twice a week, and every single time I see people stealing $500, $600 worth of stuff, and there are no police anywhere to be found. There were more police in the Lincoln police video or spy camera video that came out from that vape shop last night than I've seen in Hollywood in the last month. So if you want to rob, come to LA and do it because you will not get punished. But with all of that said, like I said, best wishes for Eric, and hopefully the team can stay focused because we've got a big game coming up this week. I brought in, I don't want to call him I guess I'll call him a Big Ten expert. He's a Michigan fan. He goes or went to the University of Michigan. He's actually taken some time off to focus on his YouTube career. I'm super proud of this guy. He's been building his channel up for the last year now. I don't even know how many followers he has. We'll let him tell us. But Sam has been doing a great job covering Big Ten football, and he's going to tell us what his predictions are for the Minnesota game this week, his predictions for the Big Ten season, and we'll probably have him back on some point this season because he's super knowledgeable and he does a lot of research just like I do. So I enjoy having him. I know you enjoy listening to him. Sam, welcome to the show. The Corn Craze Army is glad to have you back. You're super knowledgeable, and last year you came at us with a 10-win prediction. It obviously didn't go the way you thought it was. But this year, you have new blood. You have a new chance. You got a new coach to make a prediction for. So with all that said, thanks for being on the show, and let us know what you're thinking about this game this week.
Oh, you're I guess welcome. I don't know if I'd exactly call myself a Big Ten expert. Maybe I'm a little too humble, but I'm honored to be called that by you. Welcome back, everyone. I just uploaded my own Minnesota-Nebraska prediction video about 2 hours ago. I think that I look at Minnesota and what they bring to the table and watching their spring game, and I think this is going to be a tough ask for Matt Rule to come out and win with a new roster and a new staff. right out of week one. That's my brief thoughts.
Well, Sam, I'm not going to let you get away with giving me brief thoughts. You're going to have to give us some thoughts on Minnesota and tell us what they've got going on over there because I've done some research. I put out my own prediction video yesterday. I think a lot of us are, I don't want to say confused. We're all in the dark because we haven't gotten the chance to watch any of these players, obviously at Nebraska, play together. It's going to be a completely new vibe. One question I have in the chat, and I wanted to get your take on this as an outsider. Husker Nation, thank you for the $10 super chat. He says, how important do you think the fullbacks will be? Do you think our offense will be okay? So I think that's two questions, but what are your thoughts on the fullback position and how Nebraska breaks them in this week? And then what are your thoughts on Nebraska's offense versus Minnesota's defense?
I think that in the trenches, Minnesota returning a guy like Kyler Baugh, even though Minnesota's not known for necessarily, I'd say, rushing the passer, they're more known as like a defense that capitalizes off of mistakes, and they have Justin Wally and Tyler Nubin coming back, so their strong suits more in the secondary. I would say they match up well with Nebraska's offense just because I have questions about Nebraska in the trenches. I think Nebraska's best player on the O line is going to be Ben Scott, the center, and then surrounding him, there's so many question marks. The fullback position, I'm curious to see how that will be utilized, but I'm expecting that it will be used on obviously third and short or maybe even on some fourth downs. It's something that's being brought back to Nebraska, that's for sure.
Haven't seen it
Because
in a few
Scott
years.
Frost, yeah, Scott Frost, no, like complete spread option guy. He would never touch a fullback. So I'm fascinated to see how that's used and how it looks in game one and year one because it's something that's brand new, really, to the program that's being brought back. But I'd say third and short, fourth and short, maybe it can compensate for some of that weakness at the O line with the size and the momentum there.
I think
We'll
that's what a
have to
lot of
see.
us are hoping for because you've got to compensate somewhere if the offensive line is not going to play as well and play like they have in the past. A quick question. What's your thought on the fullback in the Big Ten going forward? Is this a good time for Nebraska to bring it in? Do you think the fullback's a dying breed? What's your take on the position as a whole in this conference?
Well, Michigan used it in 2018 with Ben Mason, and they tried to use it last year with Kalel Mullings, and that just watch the TCU game where he fumbled at like the 1 inch line. Like you have to nurture the position. But in 2018, Michigan used it to perfection on short and even sometimes medium yardage downs. And I think that, you can't abuse the position because the game is moving past it, but having something unique like that can help set you apart and give you an advantage, especially since opposing defenses haven't seen a fullback be utilized. I mean, Iowa utilizes them, but even recently, I don't remember them utilizing fullbacks for at least running the football. It's been more so blocking. But I'd say dying, probably. The game's moving to become more, fast twitch, athleticism, like what Ohio State has done under Ryan Day, what Alabama did, and now they're kind of moving back to that power run game. So in the Big Ten, I'd say the Big Ten's behind other conferences. So I think for now it's still decreasing in usage. But I think that could change this year with Nebraska utilizing it. And I read an article a while ago. It's coming back in the NFL. I think like it's slightly coming back. So I think that there's a reason for it. I'm not a coach. I'm not connected to any of the coaches, obviously. So if Matt Rule, who I think is a good head coach, is utilizing it, there has to be a reason. And I think it's compensating for the offensive line
I think
and
it's a
trying
I
to establish.
so here's my response to what you're saying about it being a little bit of a dying breed, right? And that the Big Ten's behind some of these other conferences. I actually think Nebraska's bringing a modern twist to the fullback. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Nebraska's fullback right now, or at least the main one that's been talked about. It's Janiron Bonner, former receiver. Obviously, he's a faster guy. He's put on a lot of weight to be able to play that position and be able to blow up holes and be able to take handoffs for, 3, 4 yards up the middle, I'm sure. But he's a think of him as a utility knife. He can be used in different ways. He can be used out of the backfield to catch balls like a running back would be. He can be used kind of as a tight end on the line, but also be a lead blocker. So I think because he has so many different abilities, it's not going to be the same bulky, slow, or non-agile fullback that we're used to watching in the Big Ten. And I think that could actually give them a bit of an advantage. That's my hope, at least. But who knows how they're going to use him? I guess we won't find out till Thursday.
Yeah. If they can get that, all-purpose back type player who can catch, block, and run, that would be excellent. It's kind of like Jaheim Bell at Florida State, tight end there, who can perfect as a running back, can catch the ball, and I think has even thrown it a few times on trick
Yeah,
plays.
and he was fantastic for Satterfield's system. He worked perfectly, and obviously he earned his way onto a team who's now a national champion contender. And I'm sure he'll be a starter. I'm not sure what role they'll have him in. Is he a tight end? Do you know now?
Yeah, they still have him in that tight end position because they have, gosh, I forget the name of the running back,
Not that it
sadly,
matters.
but they have a deep running back room. Jordan Travis can already run, and at receiver they have Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. So to have a tight end, I mean, kind of have a missing piece there, and to plug him in, your offense is set at skill position.
And I think that's the exciting part about Janiron Bonner. Nebraska has two really good tight ends with Borkature. At least we think Borkature could be really good. He broke out. He was started off as kind of a no-name recruit, right? And now he's worked his way into the two deep. He'll for sure play a lot. He has, I believe, an or next to his name on the depth chart with Thomas Fidone, meaning we're going to have one who I'm assuming will play more of a receiver role and one who plays more of a blocking role. And Janiron Bonner can come in and fill in whatever role that is that they see for him. So I'm excited to see it. Another question I got for you today, and this is a comment that came in from a few people on the live chat. They were talking about how there are no fair catches this week. Matt Rule said that he wants to play special teams. He doesn't want to fair catch it. He wants to either let balls go out of the end zone or he wants to return them. What are your thoughts on Nebraska having, we'll say it, no proven return men outside of Billy Kemp as a punt returner, starting to bring balls out in this first game against Minnesota? Do you think there's a chance that Nebraska special teams could pop a big return, or do you think Minnesota's going to smother that up pretty quickly since they're a disciplined team and tackle well?
I think Nebraska actually has a decisive special teams advantage. That's not necessarily because of, I'd say, returning or, kick returns, punt returns, or even tackling. I'll get back to that. But like briefly to touch on kicking and punting, I read somewhere, and it was from a comment, that Nebraska will have a new starting kicker in Tristan Alvano. And then Brian Buschini is going to be starting at punting. And I think that this will be Nebraska's probably best special teams room since before Scott Frost, you know, before that tenure. And I
Hard to
think that
argue
that's
that.
huge. What?
It's hard to argue that because it's been a struggle on special teams for the past few years, to say the least.
Exactly. I think that Billy Kemp, if he can stay healthy, that will be big in the return game. Obviously, Minnesota has their own weapon in the return game, Quentin Redding, who I have on my all Big Ten return specialist list. But I think that this shows that Matt Rule wants to be aggressive. I think he knows his personnel, and he's going to have to be aggressive if he wants to win against Minnesota, because Minnesota's that consistent, conservative time of possession. I think they're a Paul Christ Wisconsin, except they're actually willing to modernize. And I think you have to be aggressive and you have to try new things to beat a team like that on the road.
Well, here's a question about culture, and I think that I described it pretty well in my video yesterday. I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch it. I talked about PJ Fleck and giving him the respect he deserves. PJ's built a really strong program out of nothing. I called them a hockey school because they are. And then someone tried to challenge me, a Minnesota fan, of course, that they've got more national championships than Nebraska. Well, sir, that was pre-World War II. My parents were not born yet. Minnesota's a hockey school. And PJ came in. He was a respected, non-power five coach, and he's built them into a force. And a big reason for a lot of their success is because of the culture he's built, because of the positive momentum. They aren't sloppy, they're disciplined, they are everything that Scott Frost's teams weren't. So the question or the comment that Brad has says the culture is much better. The team and staff are unified, and that will pay big dividends. What do you think the importance is of the new culture at Nebraska, and how much of a factor can that be in this game? Do you think Nebraska will be less sloppy? Do you think because the players trust the coaches that there will be more of a desire to finish games and less of a belief that we're going to lose another one at the very end, right? Is that a factor this week, or do you think it's going to take time to develop that trust and that camaraderie with this team?
There are two things I would say. I'd say first, I think the immediate effect is the team won't quit. There won't be any quitting of any kind. I think that'll be immediate. And I think that's the same thing with belief. I think if Nebraska has a lead, maybe, there'd be, if they end up blowing the lead, there'd be the joke that, oh, look, common Nebraska moment. But I think that the team won't give up, and I do think they're going to have that clutch factor within them. They have the better staff. They're, tighter as a roster, and I really think that that's going to be immediate. However, I think with the new transfer portal additions, you have Billy Kemp coming in from Virginia and Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech. They're from ACC schools that weren't very good last year. MJ Sherman played backup linebacker at Georgia, who's won the past two national titles. You have guys coming in from everywhere. I mean, Ben Scott came in from Arizona State. I think that it will take time for the chemistry of the team to build. I think that's where Minnesota will have an advantage, is just their staff and their roster have been together for longer, but they have their own portal additions and chemistry to worry about as well. But I think that will take time. The immediate effect is the team won't give up. There won't be quitting. There won't be the, whether it's a blatant unsportsmanlike penalty or the stupidest of mistakes. I
Less
think that
slot.
stuff
We're
will
gonna
be
we're gonna
gone.
see less slot play.
Yes. You'll see less slot play. And if Nebraska gets down or down big, they won't just fold completely. They'll
So
keep fighting for four quarters.
that's the hope, right? That's what we haven't gotten to see. So here's the main thing. I made a prediction. I said Nebraska wins this game by 3. You made your own prediction. What was your score prediction?
Oh, you're not going to like this one.
Hey, I
I
am I am totally accepting of other fans and their beliefs about this program because we've all believed here in Lincoln for a long time that we had something better than we actually did. So just give us the facts. What are you feeling?
I'm very high on Minnesota this season. I have them going 9-3 with their ridiculously tough schedule, and except for Michigan and Ohio State, I think they're going to be competitive in every game and win most of those games because I like what they have at receiver. I think they match up well with Nebraska in the trenches and they have better chemistry. I have Minnesota 38, Nebraska 17, and I think it's going to be probably not as rough as the score would indicate, but I think that maybe a late turnover that's just is what it is. It's not sloppy play, it's just great play by Minnesota. And the fact that Huntington Bank Stadium is a louder and more intimidating environment than its capacity would indicate. I think there's a lot of things that go into Minnesota coming out with a big win. Probably the biggest one being that I think people are underestimating what the Golden Gophers are this year. They see that Tanner Morgan's gone, Muhammad Ibrahim's gone, and Muhammad Ibrahim can't be replaced. But they brought in Corey Crooms, Elijah Spencer, Sean Tyler. He's not a bruising back like Ibrahim, but
Mm-hmm.
he's more of a home run hitter. And Kaliak Manis, I'd say probably has a lower floor than Morgan, but I think he has that higher ceiling. And if the offensive line reloads, and I think it does, statistically he'll be very impressive. And he'll be able to get his receivers the ball.
So Chris brought this up. I want to touch on this because you're talking about Kaliak Manis right now. And Chris, thank you for the $2 super chat. We appreciate you here. He said Minnesota's QB Kaliak Manis is 3-4 touchdown to interception ratio. What do you have to say about his, I guess, start last season and where you think he's going to be in the first game this year? He had a great game against Wisconsin, I know, but outside of that
Yeah.
Wisconsin game, it's not like he had some spectacular season that should give me a lot to fear as a Nebraska fan.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the reason I think that he'll be somewhat of a threat is mostly because of the supporting cast. I have him as a bottom 7 Big Ten quarterback. There also has to be taken into account the other argument that probably an optimistic Minnesota fan, for example, would present. and that's that Kaliakmanis faced off against Illinois, Penn State, Iowa. What are all of those teams good at? Picking you off. They have they had elite defensive backs in 2022. Penn State and Iowa will definitely have them again this
That's a
season.
fair point. That's a fair point.
He and I think for him, if his supporting cast is good, like the Iowa Minnesota game last year, for example, Ibrahim had nearly 300 rushing yards, and it was only a fourth down and a fumble that stopped Minnesota from probably chewing Iowa up and spitting them out of their mouth. But that's an example of where Kaliakmanis, if he is better this year, might be able to save Minnesota from being too reliant on running the football or too reliant on certain things. We just don't know. I mean, we know that he has more experience and more playing time than, let's say, Kyle McCord or Drew Aller at Ohio State or Penn State. But it's so interesting because Minnesota lost so much. But then me watching their spring game, I was impressed. And then I was impressed by their transfer portal additions as well. So you could say that there's more unknown potentially for Minnesota than there is Nebraska to a certain degree.
I don't know how we can say that. But let me pause here. I've got to give you some of the responses in the comment section to what you said. I know you're expecting a reaction, so I'm going to give you one. Actually, first, TAKL Farms, thank you for the $10 super chat. He said, love your content, Sam. Thanks for the collaboration with Connor. Just so you know, Sam, there are a bunch of people who always ask me to collab with you. So they really do appreciate when you come on our channel, even when you shit on Nebraska. It's okay. I'm just letting you know. We still appreciate you here, but there are some questions. Josh says 38-17. There are like 16 question marks here. He said, whatever. Scott says, that's disgusting, Sam. WTF, man. There's one person in here who agrees with you, 30-17. So he thinks it'll be a two touchdown victory for Minnesota. But yeah, I think most Nebraska fans are feeling a game that's going to be a little bit closer than what you're predicting. I do understand what you're saying by there's going to be some unexpected with Minnesota since they do have so many new pieces. They have the new Cody C situation, but we know who Minnesota is. We know we know who and what Minnesota are. And I don't think that getting a few new pieces is going to change their identity much. Whereas you look at Nebraska and you've got an entirely new defensive system. I mean, this is going to be night and day different from what we saw under Shenander. Then you have all of these transfers on both sides of the ball. I can't remember what the number was. I think it was 5 or 6 transfers total. Plus, or no, more than that. I can't remember the number. 5 or 6 freshmen who could play. Then add in the transfers, it's another like 8 guys. So the unknown there is what I think Nebraska fans are so excited about. Even though it is unknown, we feel really good about that unknown. Last year, I will say we felt the same way. We felt like, Trey Palmer could be a star. O'Shawn Mathis is a proven guy. You know, there were a bunch of pieces. Mark Whipple at OC. There were a bunch of pieces to look forward to and get excited about. And for us to say Nebraska's going to win 7, 8 games, for you to say Nebraska's going to win 10 games, I think part of it for you, I'm not calling you out. It's more so just a question. What do you think? Do you think because you were burned by Scott Frost and slapped in the face after that prediction you made last year, that you're more hesitant to pick Nebraska to be in a tighter game with Minnesota this year?
I mean,
are there reservations, Sam? Are there reservations because you got slapped by Scott Frost just like all of the Nebraska fans did who are in this chat? And look, you're one of us, okay? So it's okay that you got slapped in the face by Scott Frost, but let's just be honest. Do you have any reservations, and will you be lower on Nebraska this year because they disrespected you so bad last year?
I think what it is for me, I don't exactly have like a 100% answer. That could be some of it.
Okay.
But what went into my decision last year to come out with 10-2 is I felt like the team for Nebraska was getting progressively better every year. Whereas here, there's a hard reset, like total culture change, scheme change. There are, in a certain sense, to go back on what we were talking about earlier, there are more questions about this team than I would say last year's team. I mean, last year's team was shockingly bad with some of the pieces that returned on defense and some of the additions on offense. I mean, who would have ever thought that Mark Whipple would come to the school to replace Matt Lubick and the offense would score less points per game?
Right.
And I also thought, I think and I think this caught the college football world by storm, and it's happening again with Deion Sanders, but to a lesser degree. When Mel Tucker used the portal to get Kenneth Walker and Michigan State just exploded after 2021, I think that I fell for this. I know a lot of other people did. You begin looking for those schools that bring in tons of transfers, and you begin thinking, okay, who's going to pop off? Like what team is going to go from nothing to something? And Nebraska was just, they were so
It
close.
was so easy to pick them.
So,
Mm-hmm. I get it.
yes, they were
I get it.
so, even ESPN's FPI picked them to win
Dude,
the West, which
everyone,
possibly,
everyone except for a few Nebraska haters said Nebraska will be better this year.
yeah.
So, okay, well, here, two things, Sam. I got two comments for you. One comes from Minnie. It's actually a super chat. Minnie's great. Minnie's a super big Nebraska fan. She's a big Corn Cray supporter. She sent a $10 super chat. So, thanks, Minnie, for the $10. She wants to know, Sam, because it's been a little bit pessimistic so far, if we're being real, which is okay. We want the truth here. She wants to know if there's any good news for us Nebraska fans.
The good news, and I think you'll all be happy about
Okay,
this.
yes.
You're not just going to go 500 this year. You're going to go 7-5. You're going to have a winning record, and you're going to go bowling. Now,
Okay.
whether you win or lose in the bowl game, my bowl projections are just, that's what they are, is just bowl projections. They're more meaningless than the regular season predictions. But I think that Nebraska goes bowling, in fact, with a winning record, and they're going to be much better than they were last year or in 2021. I just think Minnesota's that good. They're
Okay.
top 20 in my power rankings, and they're top 20 in my top 25. I mean, I have them as a
You're a
team.
believer.
Yes, I think that this will be their best team since 2019. You can watch my top 25 or Big Ten predictions video. I have them losing to Michigan and Ohio State by a large factor because I think those teams are elite. And I have them beating Iowa for the first time since 14, losing to Illinois at home, but upsetting Wisconsin too. I mean, you just that Illinois win or some more chaos in the West, Minnesota could go to Indy
You're
this
right.
year. I'm
It's a toss up. It's for Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin. It's one of those three, I think. Illinois, they're going to take a step back, in my opinion. Minnesota's a lot
absolutely.
more established than they are. They have a lot more depth. Another comment came in for you. This one's specific for you. TAKL Farm says, if Sam wants some help with that beard, I can share some. That's for doubting us. So I guess he felt some type of way about you doubting us, but it's okay. He loves your content anyway. He said he wants to know what your thoughts are on Nash Hutmacher, who is Nebraska's interior D line. He's wearing number 0 this year. I think more specific, or not, or less specific, because I'm guessing you won't know all of every player on Nebraska's D line. What is your thought on Nebraska's D line this season? They're going to have 3 guys who are bigger bodied, and you have one who's more of a, I think they call him a jack linebacker, who's more of a pass rusher. What do you think about the line?
MJ Sherman is going to be the best player on the line by a mile. He's in the jack position, just looking at ourlads.com, and that's a hybrid linebacker, defensive end, edge player. I think that his leadership from being with a winning team in Georgia is going to help. He's also by far the most talented, nearly a 5-star out of high school, and played with the best defense on average over the past 2 seasons. The rest of the other players, really the true defensive line, as it's the 3-3-5, it's going to be fascinating because I got to be honest, I'm low on the defensive line, but since there are new players there and some unfamiliar faces, I can confidently say that I'm not very confident at the same time. I would say that Sherman is the highest upside. He's going to be the most consistent player. Nebraska will probably be better at rushing the passer than stopping the run, which has been a consistent theme over the past few seasons as well. I'd say that because some of the guys there are young, though, for example, like you mentioned, interior defensive lineman Cameron Lenhart, I think that this group is going to be young this year. This year is going to be building towards something better in the future. Because I think all the guys at the D line, like the main 3 defensive linemen, I think all of them have 1 or 2 years at minimum of eligibility left. Am I right?
On the D line, they all have 1 year left. I think there's a couple who would technically be seniors, or maybe
Okay.
one who would technically be a senior. But yeah, they technically would have 1 year left because of the COVID year.
Yeah, that's gonna be useful. I
Max,
think that
here's a comment from Max. I want to get your thoughts here. Max said, MJ Sherman isn't even starting, Sam. Max, thank you for the $2 super chat. Really quick, I want to clarify for Max. MJ Sherman is a co-starter with Chief Borders. Chief Borders is a linebacker from Florida. Was he a 4-star or a 3-star? Either way, he's another guy I'm assuming you're higher on because he was a higher rated recruit out of high school and he's kind of a physically gifted freak.
I'm higher on Sherman. I think Chief Borders was a 4-star. He was rated as a 3-star in the portal by 24/7 Sports. It actually sort of surprises me that he's a co-starter with Sherman, but that's good news because I think Sherman's going to be good, potentially all Big Ten caliber defensive end or edge player. So if Chief Borders is starting along with him, that's a positive sign for, I'd say, the development of the jack position and also for the defensive line and linebacker room.
100%. Brad, you didn't send a comment. If you send a comment, I'll respond to it. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Thank you to everybody in here who is a Corn Craze member. You can become a member if you click right below and just hit that join button. And when you become a member, I'm able to see your comments because your name is highlighted in the chat for me so I can pick you out easier. Just a heads up. Also, the sponsor of our show today is Carricker Chronicles. If you guys haven't gotten a chance to check out Adam Carricker's new YouTube channel, make sure you do, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. You guys know he's one of the guys I watch, and I'm sure you guys have been for years since he's been making content around Nebraska football for, I think he said, the last 8, and we all know him as a former first-round draft pick and black shirt. So make sure you subscribe to his channel. He's a great partner for us, and he really wants to see Corn Craze grow, just like we want to see him grow. So, yeah. Sam, I want to jump into something with you where I just go through Nebraska's schedule, and I have you pick every week, and just tell me what your thoughts are quickly. Win, loss, win, loss. And I want to see what your final record prediction is because I didn't get to watch your Nebraska record prediction video. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's absolutely cool. I'm excited.
So in Minnesota, week 0, you're calling a loss.
Yeah.
Week 2 against Colorado.
Oh, big win. I love Deion Sanders. Long term, he'll be successful. When you have nearly 80 new players, your chemistry is going to be a disaster unless you're a mastermind. Nebraska will steamroll Colorado.
Okay. Northern Illinois.
Steamroll.
Louisiana Tech.
Also a win.
Michigan.
I'd say that's the most likely loss on Nebraska's schedule.
I think we can all agree with that. If you had to make a projection right now for the total that Michigan wins by, how many points? Off the top of your head, no pressure.
Okay, off the top of my head, 35.
You think Nebraska loses to Michigan at home this year by 35 points? They lost last year in Ann Arbor by 31. Can we get that on the record?
We can get that on the record.
Okay.
Michigan's offense is going to be elite.
Okay. Okay. Nebraska plays at Illinois the Friday following Michigan.
Ooh, in my mind, I'd favor an L, but I'm picking the upset win. I think they're going to be mad after that Michigan game.
Nebraska upset win.
Yep, that's what a good culture will do for you. You'll get mad after a big loss. You'll go on the road, and you'll beat an Illinois team that has to play perfect football to win every week.
I like that. So Nebraska's now sitting at 4-2. They come into their 100-year anniversary of Memorial Stadium game where they're going to be wearing red jerseys, blue outlines around the white numbers. I actually think they're pretty clean. Some people have complained. That's neither here nor there. Does Nebraska beat Northwestern?
Oh, easily.
Okay.
Blow them out.
So we're at 5 wins. We need one more for a bowl game, and they have homecoming the next week against Purdue.
Another win. You're 6-2 heading into Michigan State.
Okay. And then what happens against Michigan State?
Michigan State, this will shock a lot of people. I actually have them in my top 25. I think they're coming back this season. That'll be a loss, but a competitive loss nonetheless.
Wow. I think Michigan State's a potential 7-win team this year. I am higher on them than they were this last year. I think they're going to bounce back. I think Mel Tucker's I don't want to call him a great coach. He's not. He's okay. He hasn't done anything yet, but I think they have, the roster to be able to get over the hump, and they've been a tough physical team every year.
Yeah, they are going to have they're going to have a deeper team than 2021. They're just missing the X factor player to be greater.
Okay. Next game up is Maryland.
Also competitive, but I think the home field advantage gives Nebraska the win.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm adjusting your screen right here. It was bugging me. Okay. The last two, we've got Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, that'll be a tough loss.
Okay, and
That
Iowa.
probably would. Okay.
I
Iowa.
didn't give you a chance. I'm sorry, but
No,
I just want it
no,
fast
no.
on
You're
this one,
good.
on these two, because we're
You're
so far out from these
yeah,
games.
you're good. Iowa, competitive loss, rivalry game. Iowa, I just think is better in the trenches, and with Cade at quarterback, you're not going to have what happened last year, where Alex Padilla and Spencer Petras throw the game away.
Fair enough. It's hard for me to argue with you. I had a 7-5 prediction in my predictions video, so I think you and I are pretty aligned. I think most of us are pretty aligned in that we think they'll win 6 or 7 games. And I don't think that's unrealistic. I think that's totally fair with this level of talent. And when you're paying a coach $9 million a year, you would hope he could get to bowl eligibility. Sam, Brad commented before we went over that schedule, and you gave your record prediction. And I didn't have a chance to respond to his comment. So we're going to go back to Minnesota. He said, who do you think the better coach is overall? PJ
For
Fleck,
now,
PJ Fleck, or Matt Rule?
um, it's neck and neck. Like I had to literally peel through their records
Okay.
to get the answer. I lean PJ Fleck right now.
Wow. Okay. PJ Fleck was disrespected and wasn't given an interview for the Nebraska job, I don't believe. How do you feel about that? Do you think he would have been a fit at Nebraska, or do you think he's destined to be stuck at Minnesota and eventually maybe become a Big 12 coach or something? I would have thought at some point he would have been able to jump over the hump and get a better job.
I don't know. I think to a certain degree he's polarizing because the culture that he's built, which I really like, but asking that much loyalty in the name, image, and likeness era, and just being sometimes as loud and outgoing as he is, I think is, I don't know. I don't think that's it for necessarily every program.
It's not
It
attractive
works.
to all of them.
Yeah. And he does more with less. I think, Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State did more with less. I think PJ Fleck is currently the closest to that. I think right now they don't recruit in the top 50 typically, and they're winning 9 games and competing, not beating obviously, but competing with the bigger schools. And,
Fair.
and beating Wisconsin.
Fair.
There's that.
Hey, I still think that it's neck and neck right now, but I think Matt Rule has a chance to separate himself this year. If he wins 7 games this
Absolutely.
year, I would call him the better coach than PJ Fleck, just based on his history. He's done it at 2 different schools. PJ hasn't. He's accomplished a lot at Minnesota, but he hasn't jumped over any benchmark that I thought would be, something you put in place after how many seasons? 7 seasons building a program. You would hope that he can get to the Big Ten West, or not Big Ten West, to the Big Ten championship and win the Big Ten West when it's actually not that competitive. That's just my thought. Really quick, Chris, thank you for the $2 super chat. I'm not going to read it because we're a family friendly show here sometimes, but thank you for the super chat. I just saw it. Sam, another question. Huskerhead wants to know, do you think that Matt Sims or Kaliak Manis will have a better day passing?
Jeff Sims, Kaliak Manis. Jeff Sims, I think, is actually the much better quarterback. I have him as the number 4 quarterback in the Big Ten. I think if you watch the game, you'll see that Jeff Sims is the better quarterback. He's just unfortunately stuck behind a terrible trench mismatch. Kaliak Manis, statistically, I think, is going to be better. I think better tight ends, better O-line, more time in the pocket to throw. So better passing statistics, Kaliak Manis. Better play and better player, I'd say Jeff Sims.
Okay. And one more question I have. The over under is set to 43 points, I believe, which is extremely low. That's predicting a 21-24 kind of game. You said you were thinking more of a 38-point effort by Minnesota. What are your thoughts? Do you think we're going over or under? If you had to really think about this, not just throwing out some crazy prediction, do you think that Minnesota has the offense to run up the score, or do you think that it'll be more of a low-scoring game?
If I was to lean toward going above or below my
If I made you
30-point
bet,
prediction,
it.
that's so difficult. I'm going to go with my prediction, but it's really
So you think that
tough.
this is a game where we could see almost 60 points scored?
Not, I mean,
That's what you're calling for. And that would be, in my opinion, a shootout.
I think that Minnesota dominates TOP and they get a few turnovers.
Okay.
And I think that that's how they get to that 38 points. I don't think they get that way by Nebraska playing perfect offensively, per se.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I've got a $100 super chat from my friend Todd at TAKL Farms. He says, okay, folks, for every sack, the polar bear, just so you know, is Nash Hutmacher, wears number 0 on the interior defensive line. He's a big body, has been a little bit slow in the past, but apparently he's playing faster. He's got a lot more upside. Like I said, he earned a starting role and a single digit number. This guy could potentially break out this year, and that's what we're all hoping for. And now, apparently, I'm hoping for it too. He said he's donating $100 to the channel for every sack that the polar bear gets this year. So we're going to root for him as a channel. Sam, I hope you're rooting for him as well. His quote is, I think the polar bear is coming out of hibernation and is hungry. Let's go. So first off, Nash guys, just, Nash isn't watching, but Nash, I hope you have a great season because it would be great for the channel. Crypto Badger, TAKL Farms, Todd, I don't know what you want me to call you on here. I'm going to call you all three. Thank you for your support and of Nash and of Corn Crazed. We appreciate you a ton over here. He's like an executive producer of this channel, the way he donates and contributes to the tip jar every single live stream. So, guys, we're rooting for Sam this year, or not Sam, we're rooting for Nash this year over at Corn Craze. We want to see him break out and have 100 sacks. We want 100 sacks for Nash this year. And Chris, thank you for the $2 super chat. Thank you for your apology for not keeping it family friendly. I'll read your comments in the future. Okay, let me see if there's any other chats here that I need to ask you before I get into my last segment, Sam. I think we're good. I think we're all caught up. People have their opinions on your opinions, but that's okay. No problem. I want to know what your thoughts are on the Big Ten West and where you think Nebraska will finish and who you think will win this division.
I think that first and foremost, like tier listing the Big Ten West, for example, Northwestern is in the bottomless pit. I think they're in a rough position roster wise. And when, the whole hazing scandal occurred and Pat Fitzgerald, getting fired as a result of that, that obviously hurts the team. I think Purdue is, far above Northwestern, but they're still behind Nebraska and Illinois, who I'd say are the middle of the road. They could win the West, but it's unlikely and things would have to go their way. I think that above Nebraska and Illinois would be Iowa, Minnesota, and then Wisconsin slightly separating themselves from those two. I have Wisconsin finishing first in the West, Minnesota second, Iowa third, Illinois fourth, Nebraska fifth, Purdue sixth, and Northwestern I have going 0-9 in conference and finishing seventh. They're not going to have a good year.
I don't have a lot of hope for Northwestern, nor do I have much hope for Purdue, but I do think they're going to do better than Northwestern. So, Sam, my last question to you. If you had to pick one team for Nebraska to upset this year, Wisconsin, Iowa, or, I'm not going to say Michigan because that's ridiculous. We'll say Minnesota. Those are 3 games where they will be underdogs. Which one can they win?
Minnesota. Oh, that would be my second choice. I think that it's a lot more likely they beat Minnesota than on the road at Wisconsin. Iowa would be first. Minnesota a close second. Iowa, it's at home. It's a rivalry game. Also, the team, game 1 versus game 12, the team is going to be much further along. They're going to have more experience, more development. Another interesting fact about Nebraska that I think a lot of us forget about, I do this too, is Nebraska technically, by terms of high school talent, is the same, if not better off than Iowa. The difference is Iowa's been a lot better at developing throughout the previous seasons, while Scott Frost and Nebraska, in the case of Wandale Robinson and Adrian Martinez, well, you got where you were from high school, and then you were plug and played until you either transferred or otherwise. I'd pick Iowa. I think the team's going to be a lot more developed. Cade McNamara, I've heard from multiple people that he is dealing with some injuries, and factoring that into account, home matchup, the team chemistry is going to be much better. There will be less mistakes made as the team's further along. I think I think that Iowa would be the most likely upset out of those three games. And that would be huge, especially because it's a rivalry game and you get to close out the year with a rivalry and likely top 25 win.
It's a big deal to get the win over the rival, number one. Number two, it's a big deal to beat Iowa because everybody hates Iowa. Number three, it's a big deal to get that momentum going into the offseason to win on senior day. I mean, I can't think of another team I'd rather beat this year than Iowa. Colorado, obviously, is a team I really want to see lose. But yeah, well, Sam, thank you for your predictions. I think that's everything you and I plan to talk about today.
Outside of the college football playoff
Okay, let's
predictions.
hear your college football playoff prediction.
Uh, so I think that it is going to be Georgia is the 1 seed, Michigan is the 2 seed, Washington is the 3 seed. Nearly forgot that. Ohio State is the 4 seed. And I think that LSU at 11-1 and Alabama at 11-2 are going to be the first two out.
You think that Washington will get in before Alabama or LSU?
Because they will go 12-1. They will lose a regular season game. I don't think they have the depth to go undefeated, but they'll win the Pac-12.
All right, Sam. That's a strong prediction. I love Washington this year. I know they lost their starting running back, which is going to take a toll on them, but they're a team who likes to air it out. So how much will that actually matter? I think their defense tackles well. I love Kalen DeBoer, and if Nebraska couldn't get a guy like Matt Rule or Luke Fickell, I think Kalen DeBoer would have been a great pick, just in terms of he knows how to build a winning program. Not sure his offense would fit in the Big Ten, but actually, now that I say that, he's going to be in the Big Ten next year anyway. So what am I talking about?
What do you think about USC? Like, I know that's one of the teams that we've seen this year so far. They didn't look good defensively, and their offensive line had
So okay, I
tons of questions.
everyone keeps saying they didn't look good defensively. They let that team score 28 points, but they scored 56. If you're going to score 56 points, that means you're going to have a lot of possessions for the other team. And if you're going to have a lot of possessions for the other team, they're going to end up giving up some scores. Now, I didn't expect USC to come out with a top 10 defense. I expected maybe a top 75 defense. Do I think the way they played against San Jose could result in a top 75 defense this year? Yes, I still think there's hope. They were breaking in a bunch of new transfer guys. I'm not sure if they played a true freshman on defense, if they started a true freshman on defense or not. I can't remember. Doesn't matter though. They're going to get better as time goes on. I think USC being talked down on with their defense is just kind of ridiculous right now. They still have a chance to win the Pac 12 with what they've got. Now, I don't think Alex Grinch should be employed. I think that's a situation like Shenander at Nebraska. He didn't fit. He was clearly not working. And they've got the budget to go get anyone they want. Lincoln Riley's extremely loyal. I'm not sure why. But outside the defense, USC has Zach Branch, who's a freak. He looked awesome in that game. I could not believe a true freshman. People were saying, don't give him Reggie Bush comparisons. But that dude looked like Reggie Bush. USC's in a really good position to go a long way this year. That's my take.
Yeah, I can understand that take. For me, the only reason I said that, like, obviously garbage time's garbage time. At the third quarter, it's like this game's over. It was just before halftime, the sack at the 5, the punt, and then I looked at that possession and my thought was, if this is against San Jose State, what's going to happen like with Oregon or Washington? Because they have Washington has
Well,
2 NFL pass rushers, and I think it's Jordan Birch for
mm-hmm.
Oregon is a really good 5-star. So that's just questions. But like you said, a lot of incoming transfers. It's a similar situation with not exactly Nebraska, but they also have a lot of incoming transfers on defense. So it'll take time to develop that. So we'll have to wait and see. It's a good point.
I'm excited to watch it all. Like I said, this is our first weekend where we really get to break it in. So there's a lot to watch. What games are you watching this weekend? Give me your top three you're most excited to see.
Top three: LSU, Florida State,
Okay.
Minnesota, Nebraska.
That's one of your top three?
I'd say. I mean, I when talking about top three, these are the ones I'm like the most excited, I'd say, to
That you're
watch, or
most
the ones that
intrigued
I'm
by.
yes, the ones I'm most intrigued by. If it's just excited to watch, for me it'd be, Michigan versus ECU, because I'm a Michigan fan,
But that's
and Ohio
garbage.
State at
That doesn't count.
exactly. And then Ohio State versus Indiana doesn't count either. But that's just because I think those are the top two teams in the country, and I'm
Yep.
excited to see how they do. But it would be Minnesota, Nebraska is definitely up there
Okay.
because their ceilings, both Nebraska and Minnesota have higher ceilings than thought. So we could look back on that game and say, if the other team won, maybe they'd be in, X great position. Definitely LSU, Florida State. I'm excited for that. And then third, it's hard to decide between Clemson and Duke or Florida and Utah. It's very hard to decide
Clemson and
between.
Duke could be interesting, and that's a road game for Clemson.
Yeah. If, I mean, there's a chance they come out and lose that game.
A chance. I don't think it'll happen, but a chance. I'll tell you my top three. And I'm not going to include Nebraska because obviously we know
Okay.
Nebraska is my number one. I'm really excited to see Colorado and TCU. And I know a lot of people have all their doubts about Colorado, including myself. But if Colorado did show up and play well and keep that game relatively tight against a TCU team who's breaking in a lot of new components, new OC, a lot of new starters at running back, receiver, quarterback, on the defense, I mean, there's a chance Colorado could keep it tight. And if they did, it would have our entire perception different about Dion and what he's building over there. Because right now, the expectation is he's going to get blown out in a bunch of games and only win 3. What if he somehow beat TCU? Again, I'm not predicting it will happen. It's just something I'm looking forward to watching. So that's one. I'm actually more excited to see this UConn NC State game because I think UConn is a team who's now on the rise with Jim Mora. And as a college football fan, I got to look at every team. I can't just look at the big names, right? And Jim Mora's a coach who was at UCLA who had some success there, and now he's at UConn, which has been a bottom feeder program forever. Now he's got like 18 starters back. They're playing against NC State, who's got a very good coach in Dave Doran, and I think that one will be really fun. The last game, I was scrolling through this list because there's a few that I'm excited for. But the last one that I'm going to pick, Sam, it's so tough. I'm going to say North Carolina, South Carolina. This one's intriguing for
Ooh.
a couple reasons. You've got Drake May, who everyone's hyped up on, and everyone's going to bet on North Carolina to win that game. And they'll say, oh, well, Drake May's a future NFL quarterback, and he's the best one behind Caleb Williams, blah, blah, blah. His entire defense left. There's a bunch of guys. I think Storm Duck went. Where'd Storm Duck go? He transferred out.
He
He
went to
was,
Penn State and
yeah.
then to Louisville.
Okay, so he was second team All ACC, and now he's transferred twice. There were multiple guys like that at North Carolina last year, and you're going against Spencer Rattler, who made big strides last year with Shane Beamer. They got hot at the very end. The momentum hopefully can carry over because I do want to see South Carolina get back on the map. And this one's in the the Panther Stadium in Charlotte. So technically I would call this a home game for North Carolina. So it should be a battle. I'm excited to watch that. SEC, ACC. Those are my top 3. But there's a lot to watch. I will have 2 TVs on and I'll be scrolling through, flipping channels all day, just enjoying it. Actually, all 4 days. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Oh, 5 days. Thursday, Friday,
Yeah,
Saturday, Sunday,
5
Monday.
days.
5 days of football. Thank God I waited so damn long to get here.
Yeah, I originally had UConn, I think, beating NC State in my ACC predictions. It's just Brennan Armstrong coming in, and then with Robert Anae, who's a really underrated OC. I think that'll be a close game. Probably I'll see NC State winning, but that's a good reminder because that's one that I had circled, just not as top 3 because I don't think the implications are necessarily as big. Plus, I think the ACC's weak, but that will be an entertaining game. And then I think South Carolina's going to beat North Carolina.
I do
I
too.
think North Carolina, they have no defense. Seriously, no defense. Like, watch the App State game last year where they won 63-61.
I have
And then
zero faith in them beating South Carolina.
same here. And then they let Drew Pine look like
Yeah,
prime an insert NFL quarterback here.
terrible.
And yeah,
Well,
disgusting.
Dylan has a question for you. Dylan, thank you for the $5 super chat, by the way. He says, who do you think will drop out of the AP poll after week 1? This is actually a really good question. So I'm going to tell you some of the teams playing in week 1 that actually have a chance to lose, okay?
Okay.
You've got Iowa as a 25-point favorite against Utah State, okay? Not Oklahoma. Ohio State against Indiana. Washington against Boise State. They're only a 14-point favorite. Wisconsin against Buffalo. USC plays Nevada. Trying to see if there's anything else intriguing here. Penn State, West Virginia. Tulane, South Alabama. So I'm going to give you my first, okay? My two first. I think South Alabama could beat Tulane, and Tulane's the number 24 team in the country. South Alabama won 10 games last year. They were in the Conference USA Championship, I believe. I'm picking them to go back to the Conference USA Championship again this year and to win more than 7 games because that's their win total set number. So Tulane's my number 1 who would fall out. Number 2 is North Carolina if they lost to South Carolina. And then number 3, the only one who would have a chance, in my opinion, is Oregon State playing at San Jose State. That one could be tricky because San Jose State got a warm-up game. They can air it out. They got to get the nerves out, and now Oregon State's breaking in the new QB. If they lost to San Jose State, they're dropping from 18 out of the top 25. So those are my 3. What do you think?
Absolutely. I actually like the Oregon State one just because I remembered, they play San Jose State. I'm not going to include Tulane and Oregon State just because you included them and they're really good picks. So I'm just going to force myself to go elsewhere outside of North Carolina because I think that's a popular game where many are going to look and pick North Carolina.
Yeah.
Ditto. And I think that, there's actually a good chance, a very favorable chance they lose. And intriguing. What about this? I think Florida has no chance to beat Utah. I think Utah is going to blow them out. Like Graham Mertz throw several interceptions. Rice-Eccles Stadium will be like shaking. But what if Florida beats Utah? I mean, Utah would probably remain in the top 25, but Utah's 14th.
They would drop to 22 or something after that loss.
Okay. Yeah. I was just thinking because not a lot of people think Florida is good.
I think Florida's going to win this game. So you don't have Cam Rising playing. I heard their tight end's injured, right? Their starting tight end. They're going against a Florida team who is still an SEC program. They're in their second year under Billy Napier, okay? Graham Mertz apparently was not used correctly at Wisconsin, according to Paul Christ. If he wasn't used correctly, and Florida can fix whatever issues he had, if the offense better suits his skill set, if he isn't as turnover prone as Anthony Richardson, and if he has SEC talent all around him who was able to beat Utah last year, why couldn't Florida do it again? Second year coach, they're going to have shit a lot more tight. Last year, they were in their first year with that dude. And in his first game, he beat Utah, the mighty Utah, who went and played in the Rose Bowl after winning the Big 12 championship over Pac-12. Sorry, all these conferences, man. There's so much alignment. Pac-12 championship over USC. Okay. I love picking Florida when everyone in the world says Utah's going to kill them. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's, I, of course, could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll, I was wrong. And I'd give you credit, others credit, who are picking this because, like, when Nebraska went 4-8 and people said, I told you so. I'm like, well, you know what? Yeah, you were right. I think Rice-Eccles Stadium is a huge difference. Graham Mertz, even if he isn't as turnover prone, Anthony Richardson, a huge part of the reason why Florida won that game against Utah is the time zone change, the home field advantage, which is huge for Florida. And Anthony Richardson is just a freak athlete. I mean, there was a reason he was taken in the first round despite having a terrible resume as a passer because he has so much potential. Graham Mertz, even if he doesn't improve, is, I think, much closer to being, the quote, he is who he is. And is Cameron Rising confirmed not playing? I heard that it's rumored that he wasn't, but it was still 50-50 and that Utah released their depth chart naming him as the starter.
I have no clue. My understanding is he's probably not going to play, but he could.
Yeah. And if he does, he definitely won't be at 100% capacity.
Yeah, Nebraska had a player named Marquise Buford last year against Wisconsin. That was November, let's call it 10th. November 10th, Marquise Buford tears his ACL. Mind you, his knee injury was probably a bit worse. There are probably multiple things going on there with his meniscus, ACL, who knows whether ligaments got torn up. He is not going to be ready for at least another month, they say. Another month, which means he might only play 4 games this season, and they're trying to make sure that he's protected because he's a future NFL prospect, and they don't want to get him back out there too early. Cam Rising tore his knee up January 1, so almost 2 months later. Is he ready to go out there and be at 100% and play in this game against Florida? It's only 8 months later, and he's got to be, I wouldn't call him a dual threat quarterback, but he's got to be mobile and able to move around there, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. They like to take their precautions because their entire season does not ride on this Florida game, right? It's big for momentum,
Exactly.
but they've got to win the Pac-12 and get back to the Rose Bowl. That's the ultimate goal there. Do you
Yes.
risk your entire season with your star quarterback, getting him back out there too early? I don't know. Either way, it doesn't matter. This is a Big Ten show, and we're just getting on a tangent about the Pac-12. What was my last question for you? Oh, Chris says he wants to know if Nebraska can get into the top 25 this year, and what would it take for that to happen?
They can. And how that happens is the defensive line, because it's full of unknowns, plays at its highest potential. I think that the secondary, once again, has a breakout player. Like last year, it was Malcolm Hartzog. This year, maybe Omar Brown is the breakout player, or someone else.
Deshaun Singleton.
Okay, Deshaun Singleton, the other safety. And then I would say the wide receiver room, it's not going to reload because Trey Palmer was just that guy at receiver.
He was a freak.
But yes, but close enough to reloading as you can get. The running backs are healthy. Like Gabe Irvin Jr., I think wasn't it 2021? He was doing well, and then he got hurt, and then, that happened to another running back. Like, running back has to stay healthy. Jeff Sims can't have the same turnover problems he had at Georgia Tech. And all those things could possibly go in Nebraska's way. If they do, it would be strange because, the typical Big Ten top 25 team is good trench play. And Nebraska, I can't imagine a universe where they have a great offensive line. But if they can just have a mediocre offensive line, great skill position, good quarterback play, and maybe a tenacious bend but don't break defense that isn't elite or great, but in the moments that they need to be clutch, they're clutch. Yeah, I could see them be top 25. I mean, you beat Iowa and play more competitively with Michigan or Wisconsin. That's probably a top 25 or at least top 30 team right there.
What's interesting is you're actually predicting Nebraska to be a top 25 top 25 team at some point this season. Do you know why?
6-2 entering Michigan State's going to be too good of a record, especially with a win over Illinois.
6-2 with a win over Illinois, a win over Colorado, a win over Purdue, right?
Yep.
That's 3 Power 5 wins, and you've got to play against Michigan State, which also could be a team who has a pretty decent record. So that could actually set the stage for a night game. Well, no, it wouldn't be a night game because it's Fox, so it would be a noon game. You know how much we all love these noon games for prime time. Be a noon game. Yeah. Anyway, all right, Sam. Yeah. Well, I think that's all I've got for tonight. I've got another live stream tomorrow. I'm sure you heard tomorrow's volleyball day in Lincoln. They're going to do the sellout record crowd in the football stadium. Make sure Wisconsin knows what's up. And I'm going to be here live talking about it, and I'll be talking about some of my predictions for the Big Ten. I'm going to actually go through, I'm not sure if you've seen this. There's a website where you can go on and make your pick for every single game of the week in the Big Ten or any other conference. And at the end, it tells you what the overall record is on each side for the Big Ten East, the Big Ten West.
Yes.
It's very cool. So I'm going to do that live on the stream while everyone watches me make the picks, and I'll interact with chat while we do that. And we'll talk about volleyball.
That's awesome.
So anyway,
That's
Sam,
sweet.
I appreciate you a ton for coming on the channel. We might have you back for Michigan week since you're a Michigan fan, and you'll have a lot to talk about with Michigan this year, obviously. They're going to be a pretty good team again. But yeah, I'm just glad that you know so much about Nebraska and that you're so interested in them, because all of us over here at Corn Crazed, we can't get enough of Nebraska football talk.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you uploaded that video, Minnesota, Nebraska. It's already at 10,000 views? I checked it an hour ago.
Let's
It's like
see.
9.2 with over 700 likes. I mean, I looked at that and I'm like,
Let's see.
oh, yep, the most loyal fan base in America,
We're at
the Nebraska
11 we're at
Cornhuskers.
11.2k views in less than 24 hours. 991 likes. That's a reminder. Hit the like button below if you want more content like this and you want me to get more guests, because the like button drives engagement and it helps YouTube to push out this video so more people can see it. Anyway, 991 likes and 209 comments. That video is crushing it. It could end up with 15k views before the Minnesota game. So,
Oh, absolutely.
what's happening right now, Sam, is I'm making up for lost time. Last year, I got slapped, like I said, because Scott Frost didn't have control of the program. Things went left. My views tanked. I made this my full-time job and I got smacked. I was making no money. I wasn't getting any views and it was a really down year. This year, we've got hype. We've got excitement. I said, hey, I can't afford not to go and stream every day this week when we're all pumped up and ready for Nebraska to beat Minnesota. So I'm making up for lost time. Views are up. Fan base is going crazy. Corn Craze Army is lit. And I'm pumped out of my, you already know. Sam,
Yeah, you should be.
I'm going to let you go. I'm going to sign off with these guys real quick, but I'll talk to you soon. So thanks for coming on and we'll have you back soon.
Awesome. Go Big Red, and you'll be excited when you go bowling.
All right, later, Sam.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Sam was great. He's a super knowledgeable fan, and he's just a genuine nice guy. And I really want to see him win on YouTube. I want to see his channel blow up, and I think he has a bright future. You know, he's only like 19 or 20 years old, and he's going out and doing all this research trying to figure it out. Obviously, I'm a little bit older than him, but I know what work goes into building these channels, and yeah, I'm just proud of him for making it happen. Like I said, tomorrow night I'm live again at 5:35, somewhere around that time. I'll put the notification out in the afternoon. I think I'm going to have John Johnston from Corn Nation come on. I haven't gotten a final confirmation from him, but we've been talking about it. And maybe we'll do some live call-ins if you guys want to talk to me and give some of your takes. I'm going to react to hot takes. You left me like 500 hot takes over Instagram messages, DMs, comments, YouTube stuff, Discord. I mean, I saw hot takes everywhere. So I screenshotted a bunch. We're going to react to some of those, let you know what we think about your hot takes. And then, like I said, I'll do my Big Ten predictions. So that will be the final day of off season. And yeah, we're back in action, man. We're back in action. The final super chat. TAKL Farm says, I paid his electric bill last year. He did. The Crypto Badger saved me last year. When I was struggling trying to make this channel work, we had the executive producer come in and fund it with his tips in the live streams. He's actually one of the reasons that the live streams became such a big thing, because I started to make money off these and I realized, wow, this is actually really lucrative and we can keep this channel alive if I can get the tips coming in. But thank you, Crypto Badger, for all your support. And thank you for this 20 again. I know you tipped like $150 tonight. So we love you over here. For everybody else, I appreciate that you guys are so active in the chat. It makes doing these live streams really fun. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. And then I will see you again on Thursday night after the game for our post-game reaction. We can all pray for a win. Win or lose, though, I'll still be there because I'm pumped for the season either way. This is a team who's going bowling, and this is a team who has a lot of upside. So with all of that said, I'm Connor Hayden. This is Corn Crazed. I appreciate the hell out of every single one of you for all your support. I cannot wait for this football season. I'll see you tomorrow. Go Big Red.